Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to my review. I just finished the reaction. Welcome to my review of My Hero Academia Season 5, Episode 22, and I'll also be talking about Episode 21 because I didn't do a review last week. I want to take a little bit of a break from reviews because for YouTube, because the majority of people who seem to comment are manga readers, and I am anime only, so I just got like a little bit like I want to hear from other anime onlys because if a bunch of manga readers are comparing the anime to the manga and all they're doing is complaining in the comments, that leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. Of course, you guys are free to feel however you want, but I just wasn't in the mood again last week to all I have in the comments is complaints about how the manga is better. Um, because I do reviews to share my opinion and to hear the opinions of others, but when the only opinions that are being shared is complaints from people who are not anime only, it can get a bit not fun to talk about anymore. But I'm going to share my thoughts this week because the last two episodes were really really good, and I think there's a lot to talk about. But some of it is it touches on themes that are pretty complex, and it's not something that maybe we can talk about for hours at a time, or it's topics that you can talk about for hours at a time without coming to any real conclusions. It's just a random review video, but that's I'm gonna try my best to take everyone's, because I'm doing this live, everyone's thoughts into account and share my own thoughts. But at the same time, I want us to be aware that it's just our opinion on an anime, and even if we take it into real world context, at the end of the day, it's just a discussion. We're not, how do you say? I don't know how to explain it. I just don't want people to take anything I say too seriously. With recently with the Endeavor discussions, people kind of took stuff out of context. I just don't want that to happen again. We're just talking and giving our opinions here. I never understood why people keep on complaining on the reactors reviewers videos that the manga is better. Then go read the manga. Yeah. Or go comment on the Crunchyroll video, I guess, if you want, and compare it, and other manga readers can choose to interact with your comment or not. But yeah, I make my videos because I would like to interact with other anime onlys. And generally, if I can also just ignore manga reader complaints. But the problem is when the majority of comments is just manga readers complaining, it becomes less fun. And that's just, I'm not saying you're not allowed to comment that. I was just giving my personal opinion and why I didn't post a review last week, my personal reason. Okay, anyway, as an anime only, this season overall has been pretty good, and it's only been getting better in the last couple of episodes. I'm going to start by talking about this week's episode because I just finished watching it, and then I'll talk about last week's episode. Both of these episodes, one had to do with Toga. We got a little bit of backstory there. One had to do with Twice. We got a little bit more backstory there. And it looks like next week we're going to get a backstory on Shigaraki. So very exciting. Yes, the one thing that stood out to me in all three, not all three, but in these two episodes, and then I can see from the preview that next week will probably be the same, is that it gets pretty dark, but they keep doing something to bring it back. It's like it's getting dark and then they bring it back so that it's more light. And I think they do that because Shonen Jump is a brand. They have a certain approach. They have Shonen Jump's brand that they've been sticking to. Yes, they've adapted with the times and stuff, but they still have a target market. Shonen Jump, young boys, and that brand is the reason for a big reason for their success. But that means that I think even more so for TV, they have to make it even more kid friendly. I don't know the rules between like there's always certain rules. For example, I think it's a rule, I read it in Bakuman, which is about, you know, two kids that want to become artists in Shonen Jump, where you can't show in Shonen Jump humans killing other humans. And so you have to, the editor sometimes help the mangaka rewrite something so that it fits the Shonen Jump theme, which I think is, you know, is good because, like I said, their recipe for their magazine works. And it's not for everyone, but that's why I try more and more to not complain too much. Like, yes, I think that this episode, there was a moment when it was getting pretty dark, and then they switched up the tone and it went like light and kiddie, and I didn't like that. But I'm trying to keep in mind, you know, I can share my opinion on that, but I can also just share the thought that it is a kid show technically, even though, and I like that despite being a kid show, the author can still weave in some pretty deep thoughts and themes without, so that kids can like process it, because when you're young, your brain is developing, right? And with everything that you see and read and every person you interact with, it's shaping your mind. And I think a huge part of my personality is, or who I am today, is as a result of all the books I read growing up. Now, I didn't read a lot of manga, but I did read a lot of, I read books like Sweet Valley High and Harry Potter and Goosebumps, some Goosebumps books, and those books that you choose your own ending where it takes you to a different page. And that's why I appreciate that a magazine like Shonen Jump can keep things light enough for kids, but at the same time, it can kind of give them a lot of mature themes to think about, because I do think that ends up shaping kids to become better people, you know? This is where you get a big-brained manga reader like me who doesn't understand their complaints. Oh, you read the manga and you still think the anime is good. So yeah, not even though a lot of manga readers are really vocal about how bad the anime is in comparison, there are also manga readers who think that is not true. They like both. And I'm a manga reader in the sense that I have read up to the chapter with Deku versus Kachan, and I'm going to read the rest, and then I will come to my own conclusion as well, whether I think the anime is a good adaptation or not. But I specifically choose to watch the anime first because I know I will compare, and I don't want to, because the anime, although it's an adaptation, it can only do so much. But yeah, it's difficult to find the balance between, you know, but that's why I watch the anime first and then I read the manga, personally. I'm assuming that chill manga readers just kind of stay away from the comment sections. They're too busy reading other manga. But see, that's oftentimes the problem. I've said this before. You get complaints easier than you get compliments, because let's say you buy something, right? And the product is defective. You will go write the review and be like, this product is defective, blah, blah, blah. Or versus you buy something and it works fine. How many of us actually goes and writes, hey, the product works great, thanks. Like, compared to how easy it is to, hey, this isn't working, blah, 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 versus, oh, this is working, and then you just continue using it. So sometimes, not always it works like that, but very oftentimes, with stuff like this, the negativity can be a little bit overwhelming. But like I said, you are allowed to feel how you are. It's just as an anime only, I always look forward to hearing what other people think about the anime, but when the only thing you're reading is what manga readers think, and it's not blah blah blah, it's not as good, it can get like, oh, okay, now you don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway, let's focus on today's episode, which was twice stuff. It seems like all the villains are kind of leveling up their power, and I think that has to do with they've been fighting this guy, this big Giganti Miga, whatever his name is. They've been fighting him for days on end. They've been pushing themselves to the limit. Now they're here fighting for their lives. It's kind of like as if they're pushed to the limit and then they break past the limit. So it's exciting, but it does feel a little bit sudden. But I mean, these are the villains. We're not going to get the full training arc. The story isn't technically about them. The story is about Deku and his journey to becoming a hero, right? So, at some point... It does make me feel for the author who has to deal with this. Yeah. I definitely feel bad for very many authors these days, because people online can be so... And then I understand why. I've read that some celebrities say, never read about yourself online. Just stay away because you will go crazy. And I think that's why a lot of mangaka get health issues and the celebrities go insane, because it is like when you read something negative, it sticks to you. When you read something positive, it's oh, that's nice. But it doesn't I think I explained it one time. Compliments are like candy. You eat one, but then you eat it one, it's nice, and then it's gone. But negative, and I'm not talking about like fair criticism. I'm talking about, those Twitter trolls that are... Remember that I tweeted about one person who said we should slander Oda until this person was offended because the woman in One Piece are like have big boobs and are, and then they're like, this is so sexist and we should slander Oda and like those kinds of people, okay? And even if it's like harsh criticism, but it's not rude, it's just harsh criticism. Even if it's that, but hundreds of people, because when your story is enjoyed by millions, of course there are going to be hundreds of people saying criticism. And even if it's fair criticism, you shouldn't go read it, because you get tangled up. It's like getting tangled up in a web that you can't escape from. Whereas, the compliments are candy. It's yummy and it's gone. But then it's so much easier especially for creative minds, I feel sometimes, to get stuck in negativity. So that's why I think I agree with whoever said that creators, artists, celebrities, whatever, they shouldn't read about themselves online. That's why, for example, a mangaka has an editor-in-chief, or chief person of the company, and that is who you deal with, and that is who you talk to, and maybe they give you some fan letters that they choose, but stay away from freaking, Okay, so there was three things that stood out to me of this episode. The one was, Cherry says these last two episodes were really great. At one point, I forgot their villains. I keep rooting for Shigaraki and the others. Twice really felt like a hero in this episode. I like that they do that, right? It's similar to what they tried to do with... What's that other guy that I didn't like? Bravo. The Bravo was the girl, La Brava, but gentle criminal. So it's similar to what that gentle criminal arc was, but I prefer this, to be honest. I think this is better, the way they're going about it. But I don't know why it's better for me yet. I still need to, finish the arc, think about things, compare. But yeah, something about this is just better for me. And I think it's because maybe these are established villains. We know this is my villain academia. Yes, we're getting these origin stories of what went wrong in their lives, but it's not... I don't feel like the story is telling me, feel sorry for this person, they're the victim, blah 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 blah, and because that can annoy me sometimes. Not so much when a story does it, but especially when people get angry at me for not playing into that. that mindset, you know, oh, you're so, I don't know. But this is like, it's established they're the villains. We are getting their origin stories, and we do feel sorry for them, but it doesn't, the story itself doesn't, and no one so far has been angry at me or tried to make me see the villain as, oh, but actually they're the victim. You know what I'm saying? Cherry says, I like this one more too. Plus, I never thought Shigaraki would say he can't forgive the league for playing with people's hearts. Yeah, he did say that. But what did he mean by that? I really like Twice as a character, and this episode made me like him more. So the one thing that I want to talk about was just random, but one of the early things that he said went wrong for him is he hit someone with his bike. And I was thinking about, in our country, it's also a law that if you hit someone with a car or something, you are always in the wrong, even if that person jumped out into the road. And that's kind of crazy if you think about it. But yes, Tiago said, and I think that's people's reasoning, that the driver should be careful. But I still don't understand if someone jumps in front of you, because some people commit suicide that way as well. But I mean, it's not often. But anyway, it's a crazy law. But he wasn't technically in the wrong, and even the police officer told him, but he still got stuck with a criminal record. Then he had some pretty bad luck where the person he hit was actually linked to his job, and then his boss was stressing out because now the person, because he was hit by him, he doesn't want to work with them, and so he said, no, you're bad luck, leave. And from there it seemed to have spiraled, and he seems to just have more and more I prefer Gentle's arc, but I do think Gentle's plan objective was bad. I enjoy seeing the villain's story since I feel like Shigaraki is on a parallel road as Deku, so I enjoy seeing him and his crew go through such development. Yeah, I said the same thing. I mean, I also enjoy seeing the villain's story and their origin, but for me, I prefer this one because I feel like this one doesn't paint the villains as the victims. We still, the story from my perspective still acknowledges them as the villains. Whereas I feel like with Gentle's arc, it was pushed too heavy that by the story and the I don't know, the fandom that I interacted with at the time, it was like victim, and I'm like, I kind of get frustrated. I'm not a big fan of the victim mentality thing, especially in today's society where everyone's a victim and it's like victim Olympics and who is most marginalized and oppressed, and I'm just like, okay. And then there's places in the world where like there are actual issues and we don't, those get glossed over because we're so prioritized with our own issues. But anyway, I don't know, I just preferred this one. What was I talking about? Car laws, and then twice. Oh, but then so he spiraled, and I think it was around the time where he said, where was that part where he was in the car and he was stealing money and doing like bad things with himself? That sounds dirty. Let me just see here. Just that one thought made me pile on. Wait, what was the one thought, right? There's only one thing a person whose life is going down the drain thinks. I want to take it easy. So like, you know, what is that thing that J.K. Rowling, whatever, said? Rock bottom became the firm foundation on which I built my life. So many people in the world, hit rock bottom at one point in their life, some worse than others. And many people from rock bottom create a beautiful, amazing, respectable life. Some people don't. See, you fall into three camps, I would say. At some point, many people hit rock bottom. From there, I've heard stories about people creating amazing lives from rock bottom. From rock bottom, I've heard of people who don't create amazing lives, but they don't do anything bad. They complain and they hate their lives but they try, and they don't even ever make anything of themselves, but they don't fall into, crime and stuff. And then you get people who hit rock bottom and then go the complete other way and become criminals and blah blah blah. And the thing is, you can say for every one of these people, or let's leave them out because but if only this or this or this happened to them, they would have been here. If only this or this or this happened to them, they would have been here. Or maybe even here. But the thing is, that's not how life works. Like, three people can make the same decision and it can play out differently for them, or that's just sadly life, right? And we're all here, hopefully, to live in communities where we can try and help others to make the right decisions or to get them back on their feet. Like, in my community recently, there was like a couple of months ago, there was like big riots and stuff because the reason for the riots was that our very, very, very corrupt ex-president was put in jail because he wasn't showing up for court because of the corruption that he was supposed to be on trial for, but then he wasn't showing up, so they put him in jail so that he can be forced to show up. And then people were apparently angry, but the reason a lot of these poor people that was on his side were angry was because it's so complicated, but they're angry and poor and they think that he will save them, but he's part of the reason why they're angry and poor, because of his corruption, because he stole money that was meant to go for them and into their communities, and instead of building up their communities, he built like a village of mansions for himself and all his wives and like, stuff like that. Okay, so this is going somewhere. Wait, where is this going? Oh, so anyway, these people started doing riots, started by this, but also because they want stuff, and so they go steal, giant TVs and burn the entire supermarkets down, and so many people, but they only shoot themselves in the foot because many of them burn down places close to their homes. Now that takes away jobs from people that live in their communities, so they're making more people poor, and it's just crazy. But here's my point: the communities really came together. There was afterwards there were cleanup groups, there were community watches to make sure that the riots don't come into our communities, and people were putting together food packages for there were single mothers who couldn't get food for their newborn babies because of it's too dangerous to go outside, the places were burned down. Anyway, people came together so that those who are struggling were meant to help others, right? But there's only so much you can do because you also have your own family and and I'm gonna come to that as well, because he didn't have any family. Like, that is another topic of discussion here, and I have a difficulty how to say it without people jumping on my back, but I'm gonna try. So you get a bunch of different political beliefs, right? You get the left and the right and the middle and the in between everywhere. But as I've gotten a little bit older, I've become I've become more conservative in the sense that I understand why family is important and values are important, and I'm not saying, like, I know that you get extremists on both sides that because both sides have these good points, But, you know, you get your extremists that pushes people. Extremists do two things. If you're an extremist on this side, you either push people more to the opposite side, or if it's someone that was already pushed, because you're either going to push people more to the opposite side, but if someone has already been pushed to that side and then been pushed to that side, you're also going to push people to the middle, that's actually where we want people to be. But anyway, I understand more as I've gotten a little bit older the value of, you know, having a good family values, because when you, like for me, for example, I dropped out of university, and at the time I didn't want to fall back on my own family, but I fell back on my boyfriend's family at the time, and they had two businesses, so I was working at a restaurant in the evenings, I was working at the hair salon during the day, and they were like quite a close-knit family that had these both businesses and stuff. So then when I was trying to figure out my own stuff, I could have literally, if they weren't there and I didn't want to go home, I could have fucking landed on the street, right? I could have, like him, he didn't have any family to lean back on, so he ended up just bad things happened, and then he didn't have anyone to lean on, and he kept spiraling down and down and down, kept making worse decisions, because, as he said, once your life starts going down the drain, all you think is, I want to take it easy. I just wish things were easier. And so you start taking the easy way out. Now for me, luckily I had my boyfriend's family to fall back on. And then we broke up, and then I was forced to go back to my house because at that time my parents were separated, and I wanted to be there for my dad. And my point is just that I luckily always had someone to fall back on, and that's what the family is supposed to do. But when you don't have a family, what can you do? Like people like this, what are they supposed to fall back on? That's when your community becomes important, right? But how can you have a good community? What is a community if not a bunch of good families? And even I'm not just talking about blood relation here. He has found now a family in the League of Villains, right? But now, is that the best family? They want to destroy everything. Like, what happens when you destroy everything? Where do you sleep at night? What is your end goal, Shigaraki? Because that's his goal, right? To destroy everything? That's what I sometimes don't understand about villains. What is your plan? You want to take over the world? Okay, but what then? You know how difficult it is to take over the world? And then you have to manage people. And then if you don't manage, if they're not happy, they will turn on you and you will die. I always feel like villains don't think that far ahead. But I guess with power they think they can just, if anyone, but then if you become on the top of the world and you rule the world, you either have to keep the masses happy, or you have to kill them. And if you kill everyone, then you have no one to rule over, and then you're alone. What then? So villain plans never make much sense to me. I don't think we've heard anything beyond destruction at this point. The one common thing I've noticed from all of these villain origin stories, twice finally put into words. I wish I had someone to talk to. None of them ever had someone to console them when they were down and reprimand them when they made a bad choice. Family. That is what a family is supposed to do. Now, I know sometimes families... The thing is, oftentimes, families can be fucked up too. Even if you have a family, if it's a fucked up one, like... that you can turn into a bad person even with a family. But that's why people promote good family values, so that you can be good parents, to teach to help your children become good adults, so that they can be good adults to their kids, and so on and so on. But oftentimes it doesn't go that well. But I kind of, if you think about that, I will read it again. The one common thing I've noticed from all of these villain origin stories, twice finally put into words. I wish I had someone to talk to. None of them ever had someone to console them when they were down and reprimand them when they made a bad choice. And that is, to me, the essence of like this, the conservative family value, once again, not talking about extremists, but if you are an individual with a good head on your shoulders and good values and whatever. What good values are is up for debate. I'm not a religious person, so I'm sure many conservatives wouldn't consider me conservative, because some conservatives think you have to be a Christian to be conservative. I don't know, but whatever. And by anyway, I've said more so than yes, I believe in some conservative values, but I think I'd rather place myself, if I'm on the political spectrum, more in the middle, because both sides to me have good arguments. But yeah, the extremists have pushed me pretty much to the middle. But yes, how could Toga have been helped? Twice have been helped if they had, even if not family, but a community that. But really, the thing is, the bigger a community, the more difficult it is to take care of the individual. And that's why family is so important. Because now think of an orphanage. An orphanage is supposed to be this big family. But how often do kids get treated? I don't know about your countries, but in my country, kids don't get the attention they need as individuals. Oftentimes, they get treated pretty poorly, actually, because I understand how a community effort, yes, we have to take care of each other in our community, but it begins with the individual. You have to take care of yourself, and then you can better take care of others. But it starts with those closest to you, because you can't, as an individual, give the attention that one person needs to a huge group of people. So that's why the individual takes care of themselves and those closest to them. Then they take good care of themselves and those closest to them. And that is how a good community exists. And if Twice just had like one or two or three people that was there for him, like a friend he could. But now, what if the problem is that guy that gave him a job? He said, I gave you a job, and then you crash into someone, and now the blah, blah, blah. Was he driving recklessly? I don't know. Maybe, how many chances had he been given at that point? I don't know, but he was 16. Kids make stupid choices when they're 16. That's why maybe one or two friends, close friends, isn't always enough. Parents, for example, are meant to love and accept you until you're old enough to, you're an adult. Whereas he didn't have a mom or a dad. He had a boss that seemed to give him a chance, and then he kind of screwed up that chance, but he didn't. We don't know. We couldn't see what happened, but he ended up hitting someone, and then things spiraled from there. But if he only had a dad to fall back on, to say, you fucked up, son, but I'm gonna hear from this other friend I have at work. Maybe they can get you a job over there, and you can try again. Like, that is what families are supposed to do. But yeah, you're right. Anyway, sorry, I've been spiraling, but I wish I had someone to talk to. Everyone needs a family, even if it's not blood family. And the Villain League is really well written, because it's made up of all these people who had no one, but then found each other. But now the problem is that instead of having each other and living good lives, and by good life I mean a life of not wanting to destroy everything. They end up living a life where they want to destroy everything, which is not a good life. And now, how do you help people like that, Because, anyway, thoughts? Because the chat has gone dead. I'm talking too much. 1146 is another quote I wanted to... Let's just see what there was. 1146. Oh, this was the part of the, let me just show you. You're pissing me off. In the future, the Liberation Army is aiming for. The strength of someone's meta abilities will be directly linked to social status. So now, this frustrates me because they have this good sounding ideals, right? Freedom. We want people to be free enough to use their powers how they want. But their social status will now directly be linked to how strong they are. Most people are not very strong. You know, the majority of people don't want to be heroes that develop their power to the fullest and da-da-da-da. So they're not really any different from the current society where your social status is dependent on, like, if you follow these rules. You have to go through certain things to be able to use your powers, get a hero license, and then yada 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 yada. So to be good in this society, you have to follow certain rules before you can use your powers. And then those that follow those rules, they can get out on top, and their social status can be elevated. But now they're not all that different. They talk about freedom. Everyone should just be allowed to use their powers how they want. But now the strength of someone's meta ability will be linked to their social status. Now, the only ones that are going to be on top are the ones that are strong enough to get on top. That's going to be a fucking chaos. You know what I'm saying? So I still don't think, the idea of freedom sounds nice, but when you want to live in a society, we've talked about this before. If you want to live in a society that flows and works, you need rules, laws and stuff, and every law must have bylaws. Because let's say there's a law, you can't murder, but now you can, if now there's the subtext. But if in self-defense, and you can prove that you were defending yourself, like someone broke into your home and they were attacking you and you like hit them over the head with a pan and they die, that's murder, but it's not the same, so you shouldn't be able, so it's different. So that's why laws are important, and each law will include bylaws, because in a certain context you should be allowed to break the law, like the murder in self-defense thing. So a society needs rules. And yes, are the current society and My Hero Academia, are there rules about powers and the use of powers too strict? Maybe. If that's how they feel, then they should go about trying to make it less strict. They can, I don't know, there's the ways that you can go about that. But they don't just want less rules, they want no rules. But if by their standards your social status is directly linked to your strength, your physical strength, they're not really all that different from the current society. They just have different rules, but it's still a rule. You know, there's still gonna be people, the twices of the world are gonna be people who aren't very strong, who can't gain social status because they're just not strong enough. So it's not going to create a different society. It's going to be the same society, but just with different rules. But the same, you know? Okay, let's read some messages. Another thing that's so hard about this is that when someone actually does try to talk to them after they've already taken a bad turn, they often take the defensive. Oh, so now you care. Where were you before attitude? Especially if they end up in a bad crowd of friends who they feel validate them. That is true. It's very difficult to try and help someone, honestly, because, you know, people often end up trying to defend themselves, or it's such a nuanced thing. That's why I kept saying, when you help someone, it's very difficult, like, for one, let's say you're one person and there's you have an orphanage of a bunch of 10-year-olds, 16-year-olds. It's so difficult to truly help someone if you can't sit down with them, have open and honest discussions. And to have those open and honest discussions, you must be the kind of person that has your shit pretty much together enough to be able to help someone else. And you must have an understanding of how to talk to someone so that they don't... Helping people is not easy. And you have to be careful, because what other times happens, and this has happened a lot in South Africa, is when you help people and you just give them, they become reliant on you giving. And so they eventually can't help themselves. And then when you can't help them anymore, they fall even further than they were before. Because then they've become dependent on your help. That's why, what's that quote about? Teach a man to fish and he has food. Wait. Give a man a fish, he has food for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he has food for a lifetime. Something like that. Freedom for me, but not for thee. Yeah, they want freedom because they're strong. But now, what about in a society where not everyone is equally strong? The other people aren't going to have the same amount of freedom. They're not going to be able to live the same life. It's not a better system. It's just... It's the same system, but just... No. Cherry says, I completely agree with that. Children need a guardian, and humans need healthy relationships to lead a happy life. It's always nature and nurture, but in my personal opinion, in most cases, nature can be overwritten by nurture. For example, I really believe Toga would have turned out differently if her parents had reacted more understandingly and gotten, professional help. Because... when you're a child, that is your shaping years, you know? So if you teach a child to suppress something, it's going to come out in ugly ways. I feel if they had acknowledged what she's doing and they're unhappy with it, if they had just taken her to some kind of... This world must have some kind of meta or quirk psychologist or quirk psychotherapist, they could have helped her to develop her quirk in a way that is in alignment with society's norms. Because I don't think that the society has the worst norms. It's not a perfect society. But, you know, they could have... I mean, I'm sure some of you can think of ways in which Toga's love for blood could have been nurtured in a way that if she understands that you shouldn't kill someone to drink their blood... there's ways that her quirk could have been a great benefit to society or in certain lines of work. Japanese people, they always are talking about what type of blood type you have. It's clear that blood is very important to them. She could have been some kind of blood analyst. Who knows? Gerald says, same concept as libertarians. They want the abolition of taxes so the poor will be weak and the rich will be strong, unless rich people are the generous and will give willingly. I feel like you have a different understanding of libertarians than me. I don't know where you read that, but that is not the same understanding that I have of libertarianism. But I would also like not to be taxed because I do already give money to charities and stuff, and I would be able to give more if I didn't have to give money to my state, which is supposed to take care of people, but don't. They steal the money, so... It's like the horseshoe theory. Both extremes end up at the bottom. Horseshoe theory. I've never heard about that. Toga would make a great spy too. Oh, that's true. Yes, she would have done amazing things if she was just learned properly. Horseshoe theory. Which brings me, now that we're talking about Toga, Wait, let me... Here we go. In political science and popular discourse, the horseshoe theory asserts that the far left and far right, rather than being at opposite and opposing ends of a linear political continuum, closely resemble one another, analogous to the way that the opposite ends of a horseshoe are close together. The theory is attributed to French philosopher and writer Jean-Pierre Fay. The horseshoe metaphor was used as early as during the Weimar Republic to describe the ideology of the Black Front. Later use of the term in political theory is seen in Jean-Pierre Fay's 2002 book Les siècles des idéologies, The Century of Ideology. Fay's book discussed the use of ideologies rooted in philosophy by totalitarian regimes with specific reference to Hitler, Nietzsche, Stalin, and Marx. I want to read this book. Yeah, I think I kind of get it. Like the far left and the far right are more alike than they would care to admit. That is very true. So this is the center, far left, far right. So they're more close than they would like to think. Whereas on a linear thing, this would be the far left, this would be the far right, which acts like they're on opposite ends of something, but they actually come closer to each other. Yeah. One way I could help Toga, just give her a blood bag from donators. Easiest solution in the world in my eyes. How I think Toga would benefit society. Crime scene investigator. If there's blood on the scene, Toga can ingest it and take the form of whoever it is. She can easily identify unknown victims or even the perpetrator of the crime with a bunch of difficult forensic stuff. She could have been brilliant at that, yes. But I think that... Do we know? Here's a question. So all we know from this world is that quirks showed up one day out of the blue. At first, it was just a few people, but then more and more people got quirks. And now most people have quirks. And if you don't have a quirk, you're in the minority, right? How long has it been since quirks started showing up more frequently? That do we know? That's my question. But Toga could have become a hero and she could have worked with the police in another world where she was helped properly. Not helped properly. Okay, so I don't know how long for how long has society been with quirks? But the thing about humans are we're always moving forward, always progressing, and we need to learn a way to, in my opinion, to move forward and continually acknowledge our foundations, what got us to where we are. Take what works and adapt where necessary. But it shouldn't be like a thing that just you can't just it's a continual slow progress. I believe personally slow progress is better than huge leaps and bounds, because oftentimes our mentality cannot keep up. And it's, for example, let's say here's a man that is super poor living on the streets, and then suddenly you give him $10 million. That man will not be able to manage that money. But if you incrementally give him more and more money and teach him how to manage it slowly, he will be able to assimilate that new information and hopefully make it a lasting thing, right? And I think that is with any society, with any change, it should be a slower progress, because a lot of what works about our society today is based on certain foundations, and some of it works and some of it doesn't anymore. But that doesn't just mean you can throw everything out the window and replace it with new stuff, because that's like taking the rug out of someone's feet of society, like, and then you fall. So it's better to do things slowly. So my point is, clearly this world isn't perfect. They're still learning about, they don't even know why quirks exist. So there's a lot that they don't know. So they should continually be adapting the world to better help others. But now what the Meta Liberation Army is proposing is like a complete 180, or more like a complete 360, because you end up in the same place, just with their ideology and their rules. I think it should rather be the liberation side, the current leaders, people of many opinions coming together, having debates, adapting rules and things in society, and slowly implementing it, seeing what works, what doesn't, coming back together, trying again, helping those who want to be helped, and so on and so on. But will we ever reach a perfect society where everyone is happy? No. And I feel like a lot of people, they live in these fantasy worlds where they think their ideology and their worldview or perspective on how the world should be is perfect, and if everyone complied with this, everything would be perfect. That is bullshit. With every solution, it creates a new problem. And that's why I just think that the system that they have now is not perfect. Our system in our world is not perfect, but people should be able to come together, view things from both sides, have debates, agree on this changes but not that changes, and so on and so on. It should be a more middle road walk rather than pulling to this side or pulling to that side. But I like how My Hero Academia shows you benefits, shows you drawbacks, shows you different life experiences, and gets us talking about this stuff. I wonder the limits of medicine, Toga's blood quirk. Huh? I don't understand that sentence. Cherry says, with regards to Toga, they could have special units. That is one way to change the laws surrounding quirks, using them for crime investigations. Knox says, I'm curious about the litigious matters involving quirks. I think limiting quirk usage to only heroes eliminates many advantages people could use. I don't think people should be forced into a hero course if they want to use the quirk to help people. The laws sound tricky. So once again, that comes down to the fact that the Liberation Army has some good things in it, but they want to take it too far. Like I said, the society is not perfect. It is too strict. But the way they're going about facilitating change is too much and for too much, because they're just going, it's like that thing, they're just going to end up in the same place, like the horseshoe. It should rather be, they should be challenging. That's why there should never be one dictator. Never, ever, 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 ever. Because they're going to take it too far. They're going to take it to this extreme and no one can challenge them, and that's just going to make things worse. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is why there should be a group in power, but it should not... Cherry, where you live, you said there's no one leader. There is like 8 different subgroups that meet for everything and vote on everything and talk about everything. Where do you live again? Switzerland? No, Sweden, Switzerland. That is how it works in Switzerland, I believe. But I'm going to wait for her to confirm because I don't live there. But it should be the same in any society, in any community. The more that power is, and that to me is what I understand libertarianism to be. Power shouldn't be centralized so much. They want minimal government, not no government. Because if you ask for no government, aren't you an anarchist or something? But I don't understand libertarians to be no government. They just want limited government, because once power is minimalized to certain, just a very few groups, it goes to their heads and they fuck things up, because people are corrupt as well. But when you have a bunch of different people holding each other accountable, it's much less easy to be corrupt. I'm guessing quirks been around like 100 years. Redestra is the blood relative of the woman who dubbed meta powers, and one for all having like 6 to 7 users. 6 to 7 though. If each one lived about 40, 50 years, wouldn't that be longer? Or no, maybe some of them, let's say they died young, 30. That's 120 to 50 years. Maybe it's been around that time. What about what I said with Toga? Could she transform and do blood organ transplant to save people in hospitals? The possibilities are endless. But we'll never know because her parents handled it so poorly. And that's another thing. She actually had parents. They were just shitty parents. But they were also conditioned to think a certain way. And maybe... like, they were conditioned to think a certain way, and there should just be a better system. Like, if someone's quirk ends up not being in alignment with society's norms, then there should be help for that. Like, you know, if someone has schizophrenia or bipolar or whatever, there's people that are supposed to help those people. What did we talk about the other day where we were talking in a stream or something about how sociopaths can live normal lives because there's people to help them to manage their... Do you guys remember when... I don't remember when we talked about this, but a sociopath is not necessarily a bad person because they can go to someone that can help them to live a normal life. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't it in My Hero Academia last week? We talked about it in the reaction video. I think it was. Is it maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week in the My Hero Academia episode. Cherry says, yes, Switzerland. And you're right. There's 7 people at the office. They have as much power as the National Council and the State Council. They talk about every single thing before deciding, and if the citizens aren't satisfied with the decision, we all vote on the topic. But see, that's good. It's 7 different groups. What do the 7 groups represent? Like 7 languages or 7 cultures or 7... For example, in South Africa, we have 11 official languages. So imagine if there shouldn't just be... And each language is linked to a different cultural group and multiple ethnic groups, you know? So it would be so much better if there were... This is just one random idea. 11 groups in power, each representing a group of people, and then voting on things. But, I mean... I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but it sounds like it works in Switzerland, so... But Switzerland is a very small country compared to South Africa. It's easier to manage less people compared to more people. It was last week because I recall being upset. I missed it. Yeah. It was about Toga, and we were talking about how... let me just see. Sociopath. Was it sociopath? Oh no, it was... A sociopath is a term used to describe someone who has antisocial personality disorder. People with ASPD can't understand others' feelings. They'll often break rules or make impulsive decisions without feeling guilty for the harm they cause. How is someone diagnosed as a sociopath? Okay, then they just go on to explain it. But then the thing is, you are diagnosed, and then getting the right treatment means you can still live a normal life. And that is what Toga lacked. There should have been a quirk psychologist or quirk psychiatrist which could have helped her because a sociopath or a psychopath could become a criminal, but even normal people become criminals, like people without having sociopath or psychopath. So as long as they receive the right help, they won't, very difficult topics, but very interesting. I learned from Eric July that the core principle of libertarianism is a non-aggressive principle. You can do whatever you want as long as you don't harm anybody. If this principle is applied, then we don't need a big government. Yes, but you still need a government, because if someone does hurt someone else, someone needs to hold them accountable. So there has to be a governing body that makes sure the rules are followed. So, yeah. They represent different political parties, the 4 languages and different places. We have the middle, extreme left, and right, represented by 7 people. Compared to other countries, our extremes aren't really that extreme. Yeah, if I had to choose a place to live right now, I would probably say Switzerland. But I would ideally want to live in my own country. I love it here, for the most part. But based on everything that I've heard about Switzerland, it really sounds like you guys have got a good system. But I wonder, how would you start implementing that same system into a big country like ours? It was between sociopath and psychopath. Sociopath can learn what not to do. Yeah, so Toga, who lacks... Because when you're young, any child lacks a certain level of understanding. So, for example, I always use this example, but just it's easy. When you're really small, like 3 or 4, you don't understand how fragile a puppy is. So you can hug and cuddle a puppy to the point where you smother it and kill it. So if that does happen, do you freak out on the child and call them a murderer? No. You teach them how to deal with feelings and weaker creatures and blah 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 blah. Okay, what do you call that? Social etiquette? I don't know. There's just common sense. Like, a child doesn't understand things like that, so you teach them. And Toga was basically that, a child that didn't understand. Here's a dead bird, don't drink its blood. And if only she got proper help instead of fucking stupid parents that were just demonized her. I wonder if there are like quirk psychologists or quirk psychiatrists, because there should be. I'm biased for our system, but I do think it works well so far. But we're obviously a way smaller country. There are even psychopaths who are able to live in society with proper help, though a lot harder to manage than sociopaths. The thing is, and this is something we have to take in consideration as well, and it comes down to like my country, who has, like Cherry's country, Switzerland, it's easier to manage less people. Now, let's compare the numbers. How many people in Switzerland? Switzerland has 8.5 million, and that's from 2019. How many people in South Africa? We have 58 million, 0.5. So we have literally 50 million more people to manage compared to Switzerland. So the more people there are, the more difficult they are to manage. And that's why I just feel like smaller subgroups, and that's what I said about, it starts with the individual. And then if the individual is then they can take care of their family. And if there are a bunch of good, well-adjusted families and they can take care of each other in a community, and a bunch of good communities, that makes a good country, and yada yada yada. But now it's so difficult to manage people when there are just too many. And it makes sense. It's like, think about it this way. And this might be a bit controversial, but a lot of people are always, especially, how do I say? Okay, let's start with a movie reference. You guys remember the movie Black Panther, right? So Wakanda was a really, really prospering country because they had completely closed borders, right? And that means that the country was smaller, the people were easier to manage and take care of. When people are less, that also means they are less diverse, which means that it's easier to agree on things because you have more or less the same beliefs and this and that and that. Or even if you have different beliefs, if there's just two groups, it's easy to sort out an issue between two groups versus an issue between 5 different groups. So, where am I going with this? What was I talking about? Oh, just that, the only point I'm trying to make is the more people there are... No, I don't know where I was going with it. It's just that a lot of people are difficult to manage for various reasons. I think William is trying to communicate. What are you... I don't understand. 331-449-281. Baby, woo, woo, woo. Maybe that is a cue that we should head on over to Gintama, I guess. Imagine how bad the governments of my country have been, being us 3.5 million. But I hope we're getting better as long as the socialists who hate capitalism don't come back. Katie who says Black Panther. Me who thinks of Pink Panther instead. Hey, is it... Oh, it's not for me. Soto's... It's not for me. It's 11:15, so it's not your birthday here yet. But I think the point I was trying to make is just that it is for any oh, that's the point I was trying to make. I think I remembered. Okay, so a lot of people these days, especially I see in America, they're all like, open borders, take care of people, bring them here, they deserve life and But then you ask those same people, hey, here's 5 people who need a place to stay. They just came from another country. Will you take them? And then those same individuals saying, open borders, this and that, blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, I don't have money to give them food, and I don't have this, and I don't have that. Because it is not easy to take care of it's so difficult to take care of ourselves and our families. It is a struggle sometimes when you're already struggling with that you can't take care of other people, right? So my point is not, oh, a country should have fucking closed borders and blah, 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 blah. The point I'm trying to make is that we should just understand how difficult it is to take care of small groups of people, and the bigger the groups are, the more difficult it will be. But just because something is difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, okay? It's just that we have to understand why smaller governments might help, and how smaller governments need to keep each other responsible so that corruption doesn't happen. Because what happens a lot of the time, little people expect their government, they're like, yes, open borders, blah, 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 expecting their governments will take care of those people. But where is the government going to get the money from? From you. You know what I'm saying? So, but the problem is, sometimes those governments, because they're so big, and the people are so many, and they're not being held accountable and being checked on, they end up using the money for themselves, their own personal gain, and the people keep getting poorer and they keep getting richer. And the people think, yes, the government will take care of things, but they don't. That is why what I'm saying is, my final point about this whole rambling thing is, it's difficult to manage huge amounts of people. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It just means that we should find better ways to do it, which I think is, instead of having the big government, maybe like in Switzerland, a bunch of little governments that hold each other accountable. That way we can help ourselves better, and when we can help ourselves better, we can help others better, which will minimize the amount of twices and togas in the world, but it won't eliminate, because we are human, we are flawed, we're going to make mistakes. Some people don't even want help, and they will still be bad, and they will still blame others. Like I said before about how sometimes if you help someone too much, they become dependent, and then when you take away your help, they resent you, and shit like that happens. So acknowledge we're not going to live in a perfect society ever, but make it so that people are held accountable, and we hold ourselves accountable, so that we can move forward together. And when something doesn't work, we come together, we argue it out, we take what doesn't work, we move that, we phase that out, we learn what could work better, we taste that. But the only way we can have this constantly, this constant system, is if everyone takes a little bit of personal responsibility, more than they are currently, which people are just handing everything over to this big ass government, expecting them to fix all their problems. But then we just get this that we see in My Hero Academia, with one system that's too strict, one system that pulls the complete opposite way. Both are the same thing, they end up in the same place. No one was really helped, but either these people are on top or these people are on top. But really, we should work to find a way, obviously, that anyone can, because there's always going to be, that's another thing, there's always going to be people that are on top. But as long as the system is, because some people work harder than others, some people are luckier than others, some people don't want a lot, they just want the bare minimum. So in that sense, when you have a system like that over the course of generations, there will always be people on top and always be people on bottom. The thing is, a society ideally should be made up in a way that anyone can work themselves to the top. That's also another thing Switzerland does. Cherry, I'm sorry that I'm fooling on you the whole time, but Cherry has explained to me, if someone doesn't have a job or money, the government will give them a job, but so they don't just give them money, they give them a job so that they can work and earn money, and then it's like the system is there so that you can work your way up. It's not a system that keeps you at the bottom by just giving you enough, and you become one of those people that are dependent on help. As far as I understand the Switzerland system, it's a system that tries to help you build your way up, not take care of you at the bottom. Because if you have a system that just take care of everyone at the bottom, more and more people will just want to be at the bottom. And that is not good for the progress of a society, because now you have just a bunch of people that just need to be taken care of, and they become dependent on that, and that kills moving forward. And that just creates a bunch of people that are just being dragged along, and that's not good either. But okay. My Hero Academia. A very interesting show. Anyway, let me just quickly, still have to take into account it is a shonen, so I'm going to score it based on that as best as I can. You guys have a cat as a national mascot? Okay, I'm laughing at the joke you guys are making. Oopsies. I'm laughing at the joke you guys are making. Kayla for president, but that is going exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. There should not be one president. There should be many people taking personal responsibility. Yes, it is. And the more effort someone makes, the better they're off. No one here really has an excuse to be dependent on others only, except if they're invalid or have a sickness, etc., of course. Yes, I'm sure your system isn't perfect either, but I just like, out of all the systems I've heard of in various countries, yours makes the most sense to me. And I feel like it's something that people should work towards, but I'm sure it will, it has its own flaws, but everything has flaws. The purpose of humanity is finding solutions to the flaws. But like I said, every solution has another problem. We'll create another problem. But that is just human nature. It's adapt and grow and learn and develop and blah 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 blah. It's constant. If you're not growing, you're dying. We're always gonna need to grow. Where am I? My Hero Academia. Here we go. Okay, so why have I not been scoring these episodes? When 15? Oh, wait. Oh, here it is. Never mind. Here we go. So this is 21. Oh, you can't see. Sorry. 21 and 22. Funny that Switzerland's motto is one for all for one. Nice My Hero Academia reference. It is? In Greece, we have the system that hold you in the bottom and no one care about it as long as they have alcohol and parties. Okay, so let's see here. The story, I would say, for both episodes have been 9 characters, 9 visuals. The visuals, I saw a tweet. Let me actually find it. I have to point it out again. I think I retweeted it. Wait. Here we go. So I don't think it has sound, but it just showed me something from the production of My Hero Academia struggles to deal with more ambitious approaches, as many times an animator does something very complex and his scene has to be redone. Vincent Chansard made an excellent layout for this week's episode, which was redone in the final version. And then he actually asked so that his name shouldn't appear in the credits because it was changed too much. But look at the difference here. I hope this doesn't get me copyrighted, but... So this is what he created. Okay, let me just skip a bit here. So I understand that they have limited time and stuff, but I still get to give my honest opinion here, and my honest opinion is it's good, but it's not great. It could be great. It's not bad either, though. It was I would give it for both episodes. I'm scoring both here. I would give it like a 7.6, but it could have been like a 9. Audio, I would say 8, and enjoyment or investment for these episodes, I would say 8.9. 9? Should I just round it up to a 9? Yeah. So that gives an 8.5 for both 21 and 22. I think episode 21 was a little better than episode 22, but not by much, so I'm just going to give both an 8.5. Matty gives it an 8.8. A 9 from Sotos. I think My Hero Academia would be a fantastic seinen, but you know, they're only like oftentimes seinen are not as popular as shonen. Not always. I'm just saying oftentimes, because sometimes it gains traction because it's an anime from Shonen Jump. Like, we can't know if this show would have been on as many people's radars if it was a a seinen. We can't know that. So yeah, most people, especially, you know, our age, we're gonna prefer seinen over shonen, but many places target kids because kids bring in the money. Like McDonald's give out toys, Happy Meals, because then the kids badger the parents, they want to go and they want to go buy McDonald's to get the toy, and that is how they market, right? So sotos, I prefer hentai. I can't really think of any prolific seinen series that go into mainstream. The only one that gets close is Attack on Titan, but technically Attack on Titan is a shonen, but I don't think it is, but technically. But yeah, more often it's easier for a show to get big if it's a shonen compared to a seinen. So. Cherry says, an 8 for me. There were some moments that could have been better. Twice I felt like they broke the flow with the cartoony part, yeah. But I think they don't want to get it too dark for the kids. That is the whole plan thing, yes. I would say Tokyo Ghoul is a mainstream. It's mainstream in the anime community, but My Hero Academia is mainstream even amongst people who are not anime viewers. I don't think Tokyo Ghoul is like it's definitely popular and mainstream within the anime community, but stuff like Dragon Ball Z, Yu-Gi-Oh, those things, Pokemon, those things are stuff that are mainstream, not just in the anime community, but in the world. And maybe even in that sense, even Attack on Titan. But Attack on Titan is definitely more... Wait, what was I saying? I don't know. Vinland Saga was pretty popular. Was it though? I mean, also within the anime community, but I don't know. But when something is on Amazon and stuff, it might be picked up by more people, but I don't think it's on the level of like My Hero Academia and Dragon Ball Z and, you know. My Hero Academia can almost compete with the big three stuff. It doesn't, but it gets almost to that level. People say there's a new big three, and the new big three is it's a lot of shonen stuff, because shonen just, there's more bigger audience. I don't know. Okay, sorry, I'm rambling a bit, and I also need to use the bathroom, so my thoughts are going. Have you ever noticed that if you need to pee, instead of being focused, your brain kind of scatters? Have you noticed that? Is that just me? Except, apparently, according to my hockey coach, who said, you play better if you need to pee. Okay, anyway, sorry. I'm going to end the video here, and I'll post this tomorrow. So thank you for hearing my thoughts. I look forward to hearing yours, especially if you're anime only. So I'll see you guys next week for... wait, we have 3 episodes left, right? I'll probably do a review next week, and then I could maybe review the last 2 together. I don't know. Well, I'll see. I'll make an update on my community tab. Thank you guys, and see you next time. Bye.